Welcome to 1850 Main Street, a place where friends get together and talk about their country and hope for a brighter future. Today, Rob Walgate and Alan C. Duncan from the Public Square are joined by David Zanotti, the CEO of the American Policy Roundtable.
So how are the major media players, particularly The Atlantic, driving the forces and energy behind this election process? And could they make it any more obvious whose side they're on?
Quick responses sometimes are very important and very necessary. And the rate of news since the debate prior to and during it has been ferocious. And none of us can get away from texts, phone calls, emails.
I was trying to get away from them, but you wouldn't let me.
people stopping you on the street, anyone that you know, and it always is the same. They have that, I know you're busy, but, and then they've got to tell you, I had no idea that Americans, millions of Americans, are so well trained, and I'm not being sarcastic here, are so well trained in the realm of political debate. Because I have heard hundreds of answers that would have been brilliant in that debate process. Hundreds of approaches, and I'm being as sincere as I can be. Remarkable, absolutely remarkable.
What do you think the percentage of Americans are that have participated in a debate of some sort in a formalized setting?
0.0001.
I would say it's got to be a minuscule number, right? I mean, even high school debate, anything.
But dang, they've got really snappy answers to these questions.
They have responses. But I think some of the time, too, it's kind of like being the official sitting in the chair. Once you can hit rewind in very super, super slow motion, you're like, oh, this is that's the wrong call.
Yeah, there's nothing like being in the arena itself, I would imagine.
So we've all been around it or in it. And what's interesting about this is I have yet to find one person from any persuasion, critic or friend or foe, who said they felt the process was fair. Not one. Not one that they thought. And I can't find anybody who says that they're interested in seeing another debate in any way, shape, or form that looked like that was painful for everyone. It was incredibly painful. The whole thing was just dumb.
Well, one of the texts I got is they want the non-debate debate brought back. They want that brought back that you and Triv did years ago on radio in Cleveland.
How about what Rick Warren did? And we covered on the Public Square, Wayne Shepherd and I, out in California with Obama and McCain. Sure. If someone can get it to Elon Musk and Elon can put up the dough and we'll do it again. And it's simple.
Or Joe Rogan, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would like to see that.
All right. So speaking of which, let's go to behind the scenes, though. I think it's important because we have a lot of people that are new to 1850 Main Street. And because of that, they're becoming new to the Public Square as well. We've been in the public policy business for 45 years from a nonpartisan, nonprofit perspective. We are not a massive organization with headquarters in Washington, D.C. Our headquarters is in Valley City, Ohio. You can look at our website at aproundtable.org and find out all of the pieces there. You can learn about Evergreen Leadership Fund, which is a 501c4 organization, American Policy Roundtable, 501c3, the Public Square Media Network, Kids on the Square, all this. Check us out. We're there for a reason. Nobody here has got stock interests in the corporation, and we're not carrying any sugar daddy water for anybody. Okay. But we do know how this game is played. We've been learning how it gets played for 45 years. If you don't know how the game is played, you don't survive 45 years. Somebody will eat you or wipe you out, one or the other.
And there's sometimes playing the game, you take some losses.
Yeah.
It's not always easy.
No, it's not. And I'm going to tell you that the way that this game is being played on this campaign, and there's only a very brief amount of time left. Voting starts next week in Pennsylvania.
Yes, the 16th, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, it's right there. It's right on the doorstep.
And we have other states, by contrast, who held legislative primaries on September 10th.
Yeah. So yeah, this is, and all of this early voting has only messed the process up all the more. But okay, it's not right. It doesn't make sense. It diminishes the importance, the power, the integrity, and the virtue of voting. Because all sides are saying now, bank your vote. What? And all that's dumb. But before we get there, behind the scenes, let's pull back the curtain. If you think that the reality of this campaign is coming out of Harris central, you're mistaken. The ideological reality of this campaign is being driven by the towers. Think of Tolkien.
Okay.
Right? There are towers that drive the forces and the energy of this entire process. No tower is higher or more powerful than the Atlantic. They are the ideological and the strategic hub from which the first stories emanate. They put the pieces together and then everybody else follows. They are the cutting edge. Now, the major corporate media is the drive, but the brains, the people who do the heavy lifting and the hard work are at the Atlantic. They go first, everybody else follows. Okay. And then they drive it across the Washington Post, across the New York Times, across Axios, across all the other enterprises. They drive it across AB. Of course, there's ABC News Disney, there's NBC Comcast, but NBC Comcast does not have a group of intellectuals pontificating about the state of the country. No, they're narrative repeaters. That stuff happens in places like the Atlantic. Now, the Atlantic has networks across major universities and all of that stuff, but they're the place where the first honest vat of intellectual enterprise manifests itself into these campaign strategies. Now, when they decide it's time to speak, pay attention, because somebody's going to repeat it. In this case, after this debate, the day after the debate, they had 5 blazing articles on the debate.
I think you sent them around.
With intense headlines.
Just look at the headlines and the subtext.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Here's one, and I don't, they appear, one of my first was a favorite one, all right, by David Frum. How Harris roped to dope. Okay. She stayed human when Trump went feral.
Little cat humor, little cat reference in there.
Clever, right?
And the pictures too. People got to see the pictures.
Yeah, you got to see the pictures.
He's screaming and yelling and pointing at her, and she's smiling.
And she's
beautifully.
Smiling, exactly. And he's completely out of control, like a lunatic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
which he actually controlled himself a little better than he normally does in this particular debate.
They had to work hard on the footage to get that little freeze frame.
They matched up. He's blurry.
Yes. Notice out of focus.
Yeah, he's out of focus.
She's glowing.
She's crystal clear. Can I read the next one?
Sure.
Let's see. Kamala Harris's secret weapon. She recognizes Trump for what he is. And he's blurry in that one. And she's doing the pose where she's resting.
The chin pose.
Resting yes. That's midair. Yes. There's nothing under the elbow. Like it would be like me doing this, but I'm not touching the table.
It's the Fortune 105, Fortune 500 pose.
What are you resting on?
Yes. Yeah. The next one, Kamala Harris broke Donald Trump. In their first face-to-face meeting, the Democratic nominee, without any votes, humiliated the former president.
In their first face-to-face meeting,
is there going to be a second?
The Democrat nominee humiliated the former president.
And the picture is President Trump walking away, looking from the podium, looking. He looks a bit disheveled.
I don't even know where that picture came from.
I'm guessing during a break.
I bet it was during a break. They probably took a photo during a break.
It had, and she's writing down at the podium. I mean,
so it would have had to been in the break. Yeah, the
pictures tell the
story.
For
the most distended picture they could find. Now, this particular piece is authored by Peter Wehner, who is a member of Trinity Forum, which is an evangelical organization in its original beginnings. Mm-hmm. So this is like for the Atlantic. If you dig and drill down a little bit, they get a little something for everybody.
Oh, okay.
Here you go. Let's send an evangelical out there. Well, let's send David Frum and his whole shtick. You got one more?
One more. What was he even talking about?
How's this picture?
Trump's rant about immigrants eating pets was another sign of his break with reality.
So he's crazy. So we've got, here's the article on he's crazy for the cat lovers. Here's for the evangelicals to once again remind you that you all should be ashamed of yourself if you vote for Trump. Mm-hmm. And then you've got his secret weapon. Now, the secret weapon is Trump's a fraud.
Now, we said on the last 1850 he did not do a good job in the debate. So it's not like these are ridiculous because he did a great job, but the amount of spin that they're putting on this and what they're pulling away from him having a bad debate night is they're going a bridge too far.
Well, as Dave mentioned, I've talked with people that say, I feel like a Trump apologist talking about how the debate went as far as the moderators, the setup. They're like, I'm not a Trump apologist. I'm just seeing it for what it is. Yeah. But anytime I say that, people are like, oh, you're a Trump apologist. And they're like, no, I'm just trying to be honest.
Well, and this was something that I wanted to talk about the last time we met together, but just time got away from us. The fact checking that was done to Donald Trump was factually incorrect. The fact checks were lies. He was at least telling some portion of the truth. He kind of exaggerates or kind of mixes things up. But yes, there are places where babies who survive a botched abortion are placed aside and they are allowed to expire on a table. That is true.
If you're wondering where to find that information, go to the Florida Department of Health and look at their statistical reporting on abortion. You will find over the last 5 years that there have been a number of categorizations called live births. We are right now doing everything within our ability to search to find out what happened as the consequence of those live births. In other words, did y'all hear me what I'm saying?
No, it's same in Minnesota. You're right. Yeah. You're right. It's scary and it's real.
Where Tim Walz hails from.
The smarmy commentator, that was smarmy. The smarmy commentator from ABC News that said, instantly fact-checked, there are no states in the union where it is legal to kill. Of course, that's called feticide. You can't do that.
Right. And that's not what he's talking about.
No, it's not what he's talking about at all. Or it's called homicide. One or the other. Of course, it's illegal to kill a born child.
Unless
the intent wasn't for the child to be born.
Right.
And unless no one's watching. Because where's the enforcement of that law? Yeah. But of course, there's no law that says it's legal to do that.
Right.
That's, for someone to be that highly placed in a news association at the level of ABC Disney, to come off with that kind of a smarmy, half-baked, a disconnected lie, that's just terrible. And call it a fact.
But I think in the media, it used to be the integrity of journalism went with the peer pressure from everyone else to get it right, stay in your lane. And now the peer pressure comes, who can be the most extreme in the way we ask questions? Who can be the most provocative in headlines making an attack? I've been in this business 21 years, and how I've seen the media change. If you would have told me 21 years ago it'd be like this, I'd have been like, there's no way. You're being unrealistic. There's no way it'll be that way.
And Composite, we've been 45 years as this organization, and it is so radically different that it's not even the same world. Two more. Just in case they didn't get it. Taylor Swift's 3-word burn of J.D. Vance. Okay, we're not going to let Vance. He wasn't even involved in the thing, but we're going to go get him as well. And her endorsement, which she affectionately signed, self-described as the childless cat lady. Okay. I'm not even going to touch that. But wait, there was more. In that same disposition of articles, I got it right here. It was number 3 on the app that day. How Joe Rogan remade Austin. Now, that sounds like a pretty impressive piece. Joe Rogan remade Austin. Wow. Atlantic's giving Rogan credit. Then you read the article. Okay. Subtext. The podcaster and comedian has turned the city into a haven for manosphere influencers, just asking question tech bros and other free thinkers who happen to all think alike.
That's interesting.
Whoa.
I feel like they haven't listened to him.
Sure. But then it continues. And what you have is a careful notice going out from the hit squad at the Atlantic that Joe Rogan is about to enter the realm of Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Again, can I say again? Mm-hmm. Because during COVID, he was under constant attack for, he talked about ivermectin and things like this and fitness, and he questioned the vaccines on some level. So CNN had been attacking him. He had the whole hit parade was after him then too. So I think he'll be okay in surviving this kind of attack. But it's still not nice to see.
Here's what's important to look at what this move from the Atlantic is, and what you see is the intellects behind the campaign strategies. Their goal is to turn their enemies into something that is not human.
Sure.
A thing.
Talked about it being psyops.
A threat. Well, it's a spiritual, psychological strategy.
Thanks for stopping by at 1850 Main Street. We're glad you're here. Do you want to learn more about what is really going on behind the scenes in public policy? Tune in to the Public Square on over 200 radio stations coast to coast. Or download the free Public Square mobile app from your app store. Just look for The Lamppost. Find out what America is really talking about at thepublicsquare.com.
All right. One of the reasons I asked us to do a quick session on 1850 was because one of the ways that you do that is you dehumanize your opponent. And a lot of that is done by creating an alter image or name calling.
Sure.
I am guilty of doing that. And I have tried for years since being on radio in 1989 to not do that. And I called Kamala Harris on the prior broadcast a sock puppet of the left, of Soros and Podesta. Now, that is truly a clever image, but it's wrong. It's wrong to talk to a person. It's wrong to dehumanize a person, to make them less than who they are. Now, I could say she's playing the role of a sock puppet. Nah, no good. No good.
Could you say figurehead? Would that be slightly less pejorative?
Maybe, but I'm going to walk away from that altogether with apologies to the vice president and to anyone who supports her or anyone who cares at all. Apology to God first. I don't want to be a name caller, but I would like to attribute a name to her. Because as I study this strategy, it is perfectly clear. When I add the Rogan piece, I add the Taylor Swift piece, and then I add the 4 anti-Trump pieces, something becomes very clear to me. She is now playing the role of Dragonslayer. Her job is to chop down and destroy the patriarchal figure that has now become the threat to the universe and is no longer worthy of being respected as a human, but is to be mocked, is to be insulted, is to be attacked, and at all means must be destroyed. And when you read what the Atlantic did, they are rewarding her, commending her. She broke him. She rope-a-doped him. She humiliated him. Really? This is how media wants people to treat other people. Mug him, beat him. Well, what's next? Shoot him?
Next. That was first.
They tried that one. Two things as it comes to Rogan on that. First, you notice Austin's put in there because I feel like that's where the left felt they had the one stronghold in Texas, where they were having control of Texas is in Austin. The University of Texas is there. It was kind of the hip new town, cool, liberal,
great music scene.
Great music, great comedy. Yeah. Well, Rogan's there and his comedy club you can't get into. It's tough. But also, secondly, is they get frustrated with he's too masculine, the masculinity, the MMA guy. He's always talking about health and fitness.
Though the guy is center left.
Oh, he's not conservative. He was a Bernie. I mean, he thinks Bernie has some great ideas.
He's never endorsed Trump.
No, I don't believe he has.
No, and the interesting thing is he was living in California. They talked about him going and remaking Austin and everyone there thinks alike, which I don't think that that's true. They might be united by the fact that they want to think. Maybe that's what unites them. They want to be able to think. But he was in California. He was driven, along with many other people, out of California by many reasons. COVID policies, taxes, badly run governments.
Wanting to raise children?
Yes. Homeless problems that are, and drug addiction problems that are not being corrected. He was driven out. He just happens to be one of probably the most famous one that was driven out of that area. But other people, U-Haul was running out of U-Hauls. People were leaving so fast. That's a headline.
And it's still going on.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is still going on.
So you could say he went somewhere and created some kind of haven for right-wing people, which he's not even right-wing. He wouldn't even say that. But have some self-awareness on the left. Your terribly run government of California drove him and a lot of other people out. You did this to him.
Now, when you say terribly run government, let's talk about something statistically that, again, was brought to us courtesy of the Atlantic and other organizations at the high end of all of this. Remember Roy Tejera? Right. And remember how we reported on his efforts in California, maybe 8-10 years ago?
Yeah.
In which they were claiming that he had just about reached their objective 10-12 years ago, which was to make Florida a single party state. And basically said, look, what's the use of having a Republican Party anymore? The majority of people that are here and that are coming here are clearly Democrats. Let's just do everything.
Were you saying Florida or California?
Did I say Florida?
You said Florida.
I'm
yes.
sorry, I meant to say California. Thank you. California, their goal and their stated strategy and all of their revenue was to drive Republicans out of California and to make it a single party state, because what's the use of fighting anymore? We've won the debate. We want a socialist, modernist, progressive government run by Democrats. So the rest of you, with all politeness, just get the blank out, because you're not going to get a fair shake at all.
Well, weren't they saying that was a model for the nation as a whole over the coming years?
All right. So they made their play. They hit their apex. California is absolutely immovable now. It has its, I mean, it's the left coast. It isn't even red or blue. It's California. And Roy Tejera now lives in Washington, D.C. He moved. You know why? He changed his mind.
Yeah, he did.
He now works for a conservative think tank. I'm not saying he's been converted into a conservative, but he acknowledges out loud that strategy was bad for the people of California, and he left. Yeah. He was the intellectual anchor of it.
And that's why you have to allow people space to think. You might not agree with every single thing that they say. Like we probably disagree with Joe Rogan about half the stuff, if not 75% of the stuff that he says. But we appreciate the fact that he's saying it, and others like him, and and you can debate it and talk about it. So you got to give people room to change.
And disclaimer for those that are going to say, well, I'm going to give Rogan a try and go and listen. Just be warned. He's going to talk about some hardcore stuff.
There are no language barriers at all.
Language
there's a lot of F words. It's not for children.
Almost, there's a lot of things that most families don't want in their household that he has in his program.
And I'll say this. You guys know that I focus on Christian apologetics. It's one of my passions. I have, do the examples, please videos. Sometimes I'll watch a Rogan podcast and then go write an examples, please video just to counteract something one of his guests said that's completely factually untrue about Christianity. So that's where some of the ideas come from.
That's right. That's good. And
so I disagree with a lot of stuff that's said on that show.
That was such a good plug. I'm going to go watch some more today. That was excellent.
And there's some I've listened to with my family. RJ and I took a road trip and we listened to the interview with Riley Gaines. Mm-hmm. It was one that I felt was appropriate. I had pre-screened and thought, well, he can hear this. And I thought the discussion was important enough that he needed to.
Well, he's also had Christians on there. He had Stephen C. Meyer. What is he? An intelligent design scientist, basically. So he will have conversations with anybody.
But that's part of the problem is they don't want anybody to be seated at a table.
Well, I know, but you know what I think this is going to come down to? I think some of this is going to come down to the establishment, legacy media versus the independent media.
The alternative media?
Yeah, the alternative media. I think that's what a lot of people have said that, but I think that's what it's eventually going to come to a head here, because you can try the Atlantic, who has, I know you're saying they're kind of a fountainhead for a lot of the information, but they have what? 1 million readers approximately.
Can you hold the thought? Can I chase that rabbit trail just a second?
Yeah, go.
They have very few readers and fewer subscribers.
Right.
But here's the point. They don't care.
They want everybody else to take that data and run with it.
They only exist to service the intelligentsia. So if you can't afford a subscription and it's not cheap, they don't want you. We do subscribe. Yeah. We don't steal their data. We subscribe.
Oh, yeah. We got the magazine sitting around.
Right. And we're full in with all of the media sources we use. We buy their stuff. We don't steal it.
Yeah.
Okay. Our stuff is offered for free. They charge. You know why? Because we want everybody to know what we're doing. They want only some people to know, because if anyone ever realized what power they have as a brain trust, they'd be diminished. So they want it to be distributed. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so you might have that type of media, magazines, and all the cable news trying to promote and pump her. But then you've got these alternative sources. You have Rumble, you have YouTube, you have X, and all the other. And even Zuckerberg said he's not going to be trying to tip the scale. So maybe you've got some Instagram and Facebook potentiality. That's why you have Trump is going on the Lex Friedman podcast. He's going on Theo Vaughn's podcast. The RFK Jr.'s been going on podcasts since the beginning of the year. So Tulsi Gabbard plays in that lane as well. So it's just two different worldviews and methodologies duking it out. So we're going to see who comes out on top.
We are, and I'm laughing about the Theo Vaughn and Donald Trump one, because I felt like that was an instance where it showed that some people live in one society and others operate in another society. And he was like giving Trump a little street education, and Donald Trump was kind of blown away by some of it. I feel
they had a very frank and candid conversation about addiction.
Yeah.
And it was powerful. And Donald Trump actually had an opportunity to talk about his brother's struggles with alcoholism. And it was actually sort of heartwarming. You talk about dehumanizing someone. If people would watch that, it kind of humanized Trump more than anything else I had seen.
Yes.
Now, again, there will be people who say this is nothing but apologists for Trump. You all should be ashamed of yourself. If you have any moral decency whatsoever, you should join us and slay the dragon. No. And here's why. We're not electing a high priest. We're not electing a mini god or a maxi god or a mega god or a MAGA god. We're electing a human being to do a job for 48 months that's called the presidency of the United States under the accountability of the Constitution within the brokered and separate powers of the states and the branches of government. It's a job to do, and the descriptions are written down in a thing called the Constitution. I resent any campaign that tries to make this more than what it is. And the conversation of policy has completely left the room. It's all about slay the dragon. That's all she's got. That's all she's being given. And the proof is the Atlantic is fueling it as fast as they can.
You mentioned the Atlantic was a tower. If we read to the end of The Lord of the Rings, the little guys in the end get the best of those towers.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not suggesting, Trump's a hobbit. I'm sure he would take offense at that. All right. It was pretty funny though. I'm sorry. Look, you could make a case, and you'll hear glass crashing all over the place. You could make a case that America could survive a Kamala Harris presidency. The case would be history. We've had a lot of bad presidents, and America has survived. Donald Trump might get reelected and be a terrible president. You know what's left? We'd have to deal with it. America would survive.
Yeah, I'm okay if Donald Trump's Gollum. That's okay. He was used mightily during the course of that story.
My point is, we could end up with a bad president in either case.
You could.
It's irresponsible to see. This isn't even about the presidency anymore. This is about a spiritual, psychological game that's being played that says, this is a dragon, slay the dragon, and you do it by voting for me. But guess what? She's only going to be there for 8 years. I want to know who she's shilling for, who will use the power behind the throne. That's what I want to know.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.